Morning, everybody. I don't feel like blaming people and so forth, but I wanted to talk about an idea that I had this morning. In light of what had apparently caused this whole epidemic, the eating of bats, I wanted to discuss this issue about our hashkafa, our outlook, our ideology, our philosophy about Judaism and Jewish laws, and particularly the laws of kashrut, laws of kashrus, the laws of kosher dietary laws. All my life I was taught, pretty much, the way we understand it, is that we do not keep kosher for health reasons, because there's plenty of kosher food that's not healthy, right? And it is purely spiritual, and that this is a particular parochial relationship that God has with the Jewish people. That's why in Parsha Shmini it says, "V'daber b'nei Yisrael," and speak unto the children of Israel. And so therefore, when it comes to the 7 laws of Noah, the only law that has to be kept by non-Jews is Aver Min HaChai, is that they are not allowed to eat living animals, not allowed to take a limb from a living animal. I would say that would apply to eating the animal whole as well. When it's alive, you can only eat dead animals. And then anything else they can pretty much eat. And it's none of our business what they eat. The question is, even though this is what we're taught, is this really the hashkafa of Chazal? Is this really the ideology of our sages? Even though this is popular Judaism, is it really traditional Judaism? And contemplating this, and some of our viewers have commented on this, asked me about this, I kind of opened up my mind and did some more research, and I realized that this one viewer who mentioned this a few months ago, he's right. We should be discouraging people from eating shkotzim v'ramotzim, from eating all these disgusting animals, no matter what religion someone's from. One of my rebbeim, Rabbi Ariel Bar Tzadok, who I only met in person one time, but I hold in very high regard, recently came out with a video saying that non-Jews should avoid the unclean meats. Doesn't necessarily, and they should avoid eating blood. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have to have meat that was killed with shechita, kosher, actual kosher meat, not just strictly kosher meat, actual kosher meat, but that they should avoid the species that are unkosher. And even though it's not a sin in the sense that we understand it, perhaps, oh my goodness, what's he got back there? It's still something to be avoided because of the damage that it does. And the way Rabbi Bar Tzadok explained it, he said in an energy manner, which I think is different than health and different than spirituality. Maybe it's somewhere in between the two. However, we see that there's health issues, and there are public health issues with regard to eating these animals, bats and pangolins and all these exotic animals, bush meat, and it should be avoided. Now, certainly, I saw a video recently where someone actually ate a whole bird alive. It's also 100%, that for sure we have to stand up against and to speak out against. When it comes to the Chinese communists, which again, we're not talking about the Chinese people, we're not talking about Americans of Chinese ancestry or origin. We're not talking about anybody else. We're not even talking about the average people in China. I mean, you have In China, you have a Muslim population, the Uyghurs, who are being discriminated against. Worse than that, they're being put in concentration camps. And these people probably, are our best friends. They're they're not eating these types of animals. They're following the Islamic laws, which are not as strict as the Jewish laws, but similar, and probably and in a certain way go along with what we're talking about here. And certainly, the sages do say that the heathens were disgusting people because they eat disgusting animals. And it seems to be both a health issue and a spiritual issue and so forth. And that they would have what to gain by avoiding eating these animals. The saying that you are what you eat is it's a Jewish idea. Nachmanides talks about this, that we, in the kosher laws, we only eat animals that are, kindly, sweet animals that don't eat other animals and so forth. Gentle animals like sheep and cows and so forth. And even though they might every now and then eat other animals, but that's not their usual nature. And these are the issues that we have to, examine, that it's not that we are, keeping to ourselves, it reminds me of, Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner had the 2,000-year-old man, and the one time, so Carl Reiner asked Mel Brooks, did you have national anthems? He said, well, we had cave anthems. And he said, ours was They Can All Go to Hell Except Cave 76. And that should not be our approach. We should have a certain universalist approach that we appreciate, what's going on in the world, and care about other people, and recognize the connections that we have, and not say that, this is something just for the Jews. There are certain things like that, Shabbos perhaps, and even Shabbos we can discuss, tefillah and things like that. But when it comes specifically to what types of animals should be eaten and should not be eaten, it very well might be, I'm not saying that it has to be, but it might be something that we should consider, especially that we live in a more interconnected world than they did in earlier times. Not that the Torah has changed in any way. I'm saying just the opposite. I'm saying that what I'm saying now is a traditional Torah ideology, and it's nothing new, and that we were teaching it wrong, and we were learning it wrong. Again, not in the matter of halachically speaking, but in a matter of hashkafically speaking. The halacha remains the same, that the only law that a non-Jew is obligated to keep is Aver Minachai. But the hashkafa that we should have about it, the ideology and the outlook on life that we should have about it, not just merely legalism, but an outlook and philosophy. Perhaps we should do a little bit more research, learn more what Chazal actually said about these things, as well as what the Kabbalists had to say. These are not spooky, mystical issues, but rather practical issues that really affect society at large and should be taken into consideration. This is not a racial attack in any way against Chinese people. It's just the opposite. It's a call to them, and we're not trying to be imperialistic to impose our faith and our traditions on others, but wisdom should be taken from wherever it comes from. Dennis Prager often says that he hopes that the wisdom of the Torah would be, something that could be appreciated by someone in China or in Africa or wherever it is, and perhaps this particular issue of which types of species of animals should be eaten and should not be eaten is actually a wisdom issue and not merely a spiritual, mystical issue, but actually one that and not merely a parochial priestly law issue, but rather a universal issue. Perhaps. All right. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. We'll see you later.